Evening, everybody. I'm Tess. I'm a developer. This is my first talk. Please be nice. I am a full-stack multi-language developer, so I spend about a third of my time writing in PHP, and the rest of the time I spend writing lots of other different languages. But the one concurrent theme throughout the whole day is version control. If my code doesn't go in version control, it doesn't go out the door. Them's the rules. I didn't make them. That's kind of how they are. I've been doing this for a while, so I'm kind of used to seeing this. So I see a lot of requests to sort out my conflicts. So when I've updated just before I check something in, then I'll see the red in my ledger, and I'm used to kind of clearing it up. That's just very simple inline diff of changes to resolve. Apparently that's not the next one. These ones I'm relatively comfortable with. Who else really likes doing tree conflict resolution? No? I've actually worked with people that will put out their feature on their own with nobody else because they don't want to deal with any kind of tree conflicts. In fact, last time I saw someone try to look at that, they looked a bit like this. And if they're really, really honest, that's when the panic sets in. So we see quite a few, but why do we see so many? That's the nub of the problem. I work at a hosting company. We've got 40 plus developers. We all work on lots of languages, but most of us will work on PHP some of the time. We also have quite a bit of overlapping work. So we'll have teams that look after products, but when you work on domains, it's going to have an overlap with emails or an overlap with hosting. So there's a certain amount of other people treading in your garden. We do a lot of context swapping, so we'll do live support work at the same time as project work for this sprint, and releasing last sprint's work, and doing someone's code review, and looking at what we're doing next. So there's a lot of folders wandering around, and spoiler alert. We'd like to talk all the time, we'd like to be good citizens, but we can't. We've actually got to sit down and write code, because otherwise it will never get out the door. And the other problem that we're seeing, particularly at the moment, is we're all trainee PHP scouts. Mark Cocaine, I think is his name, has popularised the idea of a PHP code scout. I think it's a fantastic idea. We've always been talking about going to a code base and leaving it in a better state than when you first found it. And because we do a lot of that, we're moving legacy code to PSR2, actual coding standards. We do see quite a lot of conflicts. So how do we fix them? Apart from dressing up as superheroes, of course. The first thing is we practice bonsai. So we have a very careful culture of looking at how our repository tree is constructed. We think about what projects and what components work together, where we want our common library code to be. So we've got lots of components that use shared code. Where do we want that to be? I've worked with people that check out the entire repository for a project into their working copy, including trunks and branches and tags and everything in their folders. And as far as I'm concerned, that's kind of avoiding the point of using version control. So checking out at the right level makes a lot more sense, means you're not going to be trying to change files in the wrong place. We also care about where we branch and how we branch. So sometimes we'll branch for a project, but that's very rare because we don't want it to get stale. Most of the time we'll branch for a sprint or for a set of features. So we think about when we're going to be developing, who's going to be developing this stuff, but also how we're going to integrate and release it. So that helps us avoid some of the conflicts. And we also clean up. When we go live, branches do not stick around for long. We have quite a small, nice, picturesque tree. So the other thing we try and do is we be prepared. So we know our tools as much as we possibly can. Quite a lot of us will use client command line tools, and some of us will use GUI clients. little batch scripts to help us check things out, update things en masse, things like that. It's always good to keep a clean working copy. I've spent hours trying to fix conflicts when I've actually found that somebody didn't do a clean up on their working copy for 5 weeks. Was not great. We avoid switching as much as possible, so we have lots of different reasons why we'll look at codes at different times, and I'll have a working copy for live fixes, I'll have another working copy for trunk, the latest live branch, and the project working I'm doing in the sprint at the moment. Next thing to think about is watching where you leap. I'll say that quite a lot. I tend to check commit logs before I update. So I know what files I'm working on. I'll search for those files in the log history for my repository, and I'll go and have a chat to the person who's changed them last if I don't understand their changes or I think there's going to be a conflict. So that leads us on to communicating and collaborating. And this is what I mean by being a good citizen and good citizenship. Because we can have all the tech tools we like, but unless we, shock horror, go up to somebody's desk and talk to them in person, which is a bit scary for me sometimes, we won't actually deal with the conflicts before they happen. So this is the first sort of big problem that I usually face. Interleaving changes isn't a tree conflict, but it is a pretty bad inline conflict. You tend to find that you've got an old method that people just want to chuck out, and two devs will replace it with something different, not particularly replacement functionality wise, but dev A does shiny new method, and dev B does shiny sparkly new method, and dev A gets there first. Dev B tries to update and goes, yeah, your client's tried to do some kind of diff on this, and it ends up with, if you let it carry on, it'll end up with interleaving lines. So it'll have your two methods shoved together, and that's never going to work. If you're not using PHP and you're using a compiled language, it's easy to spot because it won't build. With PHP, you have to watch for it. So, how do I fix that? Well, it's actually quite simple. When you get to the diff stage, and you've identified that there's a problem, there'll be a .mine file, all mine. So I save that to a new location. I go, great, yeah, just accept whatever they've done, that's fine. And then I'll use my clients to compare the two files and go, yeah, it's just my new method that's got to go in there. So I'll just hand crank it in there and then commit. So tree conflicts, my favourite bugbear, and the same for my colleagues as well. Again, watching where you leap. So this is kind of like an interleaving problem, but on a file kind of scale. We tend to announce when we're going to do big refactors of things. That tends to help ahead of time. Again, checking the commit logs before you do an update tends to help. And then we get collaborating to get early warning. Don't even consider merging until you've had a quick look. So there's two types. One is add. If you're the second one in, just undo the add. Remove your file somewhere else. Merge up and commit to your working copy, what everybody else has done, and then have a look at what you've added and what they've added. Do a diff, and then copy your changes in. If it's a delete, you know, that day when you spent hours and hours and hours fixing someone and someone's just gone and deleted it before you got there, have a chat to them. It could just be a rename. So some systems will actually treat a rename as a delete. And sometimes you can solve it by patch file. Other times you go and have a chat to them and actually they've completely changed how what you're trying to do is being handled, so your fix might not be necessary, or it could be put into a different part of the file. And if they completely remove that feature, celebrate with coffee. You don't have to support it anymore. So these are all very social kind of solutions. They're not necessarily technological solutions. But we are moving some of our legacy code base to Git at the moment, and I'm really looking forward to the features because I love stash. It means that I can go and code review someone's code somewhere else in a different branch without losing what I've got and without committing it either, because I'm right in the middle of something. Cherry picking my commits is brilliant because I can do all the changes for PSR2 and then I can do my features as a separate commit. And apparently that's 10 minutes, but we'll carry on very briefly. Apparently, when you add files in Git, there's no tree conflicts because Git handles it. I have yet to see this, but I'm really looking forward to it. And it also handles deleted files for tree conflicts as well, much easier. So the summary is, don't panic. There's always going to be a solution. Generally, it's a fairly simple one. I found lots of interesting reads around this subject, so I'll send around the slides and feel free to take a look. Thank you very much. That was my first talk, and it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. So has anyone got any questions?
One problem I have is that sometimes I need to switch between lots of different branches myself before pushing them to another repository. Do you know any tools that will help me manage for me to keep track of what each branch means?
We find naming conventions is really, really good. So we'll name branches after features or the main features, or we use Jira, so the story number tends to help with things like that. We've also got little batch scripts that we run to run update on multiple folders. So if you have multiple working copies, you can keep track of them that way.
Are you sure you want to upgrade from Subversion?
I've thought
joking.
about it, and you know, on balance, given what we want to do with it, probably.
I'm all about Subversion, but it turns out Git's quite popular.
My history is Subversion. I kind of used to it for years. Git's new and shiny, so I'm all about the new and shiny as well. Time will tell, I think, is the rest.
I think overall you'll like it, but you definitely think whenever you come across a Git command, like I could use the Subversion like one command and I'd be laughing.
I might have a secret yearning, but I'm not going to tell too many people about that.
Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah. Anyone else? It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.